are now tuned in to the TMS podcast. Here's your host, Jay Curtis Strickland.
Welcome, my friends. Do me a favor, like, comment, share, subscribe, and click on that bell for notifications. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a follow and give us a rating. That would be fantastic. If you're watching on YouTube as well, we've also got super chats. If you want to leave a small little donation, this show's a little bit costly, so I would appreciate any support that anyone could give. That'd be awesome. If you want to ask a question during the middle of the stream, I'll see it right away. Or if you just want to show your appreciation, that would be great too. Thank you so much.
Tonight's guests didn't just play hardcore, they weaponized it. Hailing from Pennsylvania, Turmoil helped define the late 90s metallic hardcore sound with crushing riffs, chaotic precision, and raw, unfiltered intensity that hit like a bar fight with a philosophy degree. Their landmark record, The Process Of, set the standard, equal parts calculated and unhinged, while their live shows turned rooms into pressure cookers ready to explode. Please welcome vocalist Jon Gula and drummer Jon Pushnik.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, man. Thanks for having us on, man.
Happy to be on.
Absolutely. What's going on with you guys today?
Finishing up some work, hanging out in North Carolina. How about you, Gula?
Yeah, I'm in Colorado. I live in northern Colorado, about an hour north of Denver, and just pretty chill day on a Sunday. You know, not too much happening here, just relaxing.
Excellent. Are you liking the North Carolina experience? I know you said you're down here pretty frequently there, Jon Pushnik.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been kind of cool, like, to see the city grow over the last 10 years or so. I've been working here on and off for a little while. I just wanted to point out real quick, I can't hear Gula. I don't know if he can hear me. Can you hear me, Gula?
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Maybe I don't have to hear you.
You guys can't hear each other.
I can hear you, but I can't hear him.
Oh.
I can hear everybody. I got everybody.
Sorry to throw a wrench in the works.
That's weird. Okay. Well.
We can roll with it if you need to.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate.
That's all good.
You could hear him before, though, right?
I could, yeah.
That's
yeah.
Weird. What is going on? Maybe try dropping out and dropping back in.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know what the solution would be to that, but
okay.
I guess give that a try, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I'll go ahead and ask Gula this question while we're working on it. What was your experience with music growing up? Did you have music playing on your household? Did you play in any sort of high school or proto bands before you got involved in hardcore and punk rock?
Yeah, man. Growing up was I grew up in a small town. Myself, Hodges, and Hydro, who are the guitarists for Turmoil, we all grew up in a small town called Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. And so when I was growing up, my dad had this old Panasonic stereo, and it was probably late 60s. It only had the 8-track and it only had the record player to it, and that was it. And at an early age, man, he had some really cool 8-tracks and some vinyls, all that typical 70s classic rock stuff, but I was always fascinated by the mechanics of the record player. So when I was super young, I would just put records on and let them play. And I had no idea what those bands were at the time, but, I would just sit there for hours playing records, and it was like Foghat, Zeppelin, Hendrix, stuff like that. Later on, find that out. And then also my grandmother always had the radio on. I was over there quite a bit, and she was listening to a lot of oldies. So, that was probably my initial, music experience, and it wasn't until far later that I got into like metal and things like that, because I would say, I was early elementary school, messing around with my dad's stereo.
Pushnik, were you able to hear us now?
Yeah, we're all good now.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So my question for him was, what was your relationship with music growing up, and what sort of exposure did you have, like, in the house as a child, and then did you play in any sort of proto bands or anything like that leading up to your hardcore and punk rock experience?
Yeah, so really my mom was she was really into music. She just loved music. She didn't have a specific genre. She wasn't like, I mean, she just loved a lot of popular radio things for, like her generation. So she grew up on like the Beatles, a lot of like girl group R&B stuff. So I had this collection of like 45s from like the 60s. I would find any record, like Gula was saying, you'd find almost like any record and just sort of like at a very young age, just try to connect with whatever. It was interesting to sit and look at the artwork, pull the jacket out, like read all the stuff, kind of wonder what that world was like. And I did a lot of that. And then that transitioned into, um, my dad was more into rock, similar situation as Gula. Like my dad listened to like some classic rock and stuff like that. And then once I started BMX racing and skateboarding, that quickly transitioned to like meeting people who were like listening to, 7 Seconds or the Exploited or Metallica or whatever it was. It was sort of like the drug to get you into hardcore. And you asked like if I played in any bands before. I didn't. I actually learned. I started learning drums on my own just because I wanted to do it, but very quickly after that. Um, it became clear that there was an opportunity to play in a band, and that band was Conviction. And so I didn't learn a whole lot before I got into Conviction, or at least I didn't take it real seriously until that opportunity came up. And Conviction was a straight edge band from the area that I grew up in, central Pennsylvania. And once that seemed like that was a possibility, I think I had a real far outside chance at the time. There were a couple other people they were looking at, and then I just had to like sure up what I was doing. So I practiced real hard uh, for what seemed like a long time, was probably only a few months in reality. And then eventually that was my first band. So
And speaking of Conviction, let's go ahead and play a little clip.
okay.
I'd like to tell you all to stay the fuck away from Rick Capital and his band of fucking idiots.
Singer was pretty passionate, I see.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We were all pretty passionate. We were kind of we were dickheads actually, I think.
Did they
We were
ever
a little
see that?
arrogant.
Did
What's
they
that?
ever see that clip?
I have no idea actually. I've
Okay.
never gotten any blowback or anything like that, but
Okay.
yeah. But we all were on the same page at the time. We were, you know, that's just kind of how we rolled at the time. So
You
we
never had to open for Shelter, or you guys never shared like the same bill, either before
no,
or
I don't
after
think
that?
we did actually, not after that. And I don't think it would have been, I mean, how many people were we playing? There was no internet, right? Like,
Right.
it would have been like word of mouth back in the day. And like, full disclaimer, like I have no beef with Ray or anybody from Shelter, but I think at the time, being idealistic at the age of what I was probably 16 or 17 at that time, it could have been 18, but we just saw what was happening with like one of our favorite hardcore bands, and they were becoming more of sort of like radio friendly, and I think we were offended by that. So
Which band was that?
what you said today, like turning, becoming like Shelter, basically that
Okay.
kind of thing.
Okay, so it was in reference to them. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I know that a lot of people have kind of looked at things from an anti-theistic approach where completely in opposition to religion and spirituality and whatnot. But as they've gotten older, they've kind of softened to the idea of like, okay, you know what? If they're off here doing their own thing, no biggie, whatever. Do
Yeah.
you feel like individually and probably that band's members specifically have kind of changed their perspective as they've gotten older?
That's a good question. You know, I haven't stayed in touch. I would say for Jim Winters, who was also in Earth Crisis, I don't think he probably has softened up too much, but I could be wrong about that. I feel like he is probably very consistent in his convictions. I've definitely softened up a bit. You know, I've seen. I think as you go through life and you see what brings some people inner peace. What not? I'm not advocating necessarily for any specific religion, but just meaning that some people need, you know, some people need something to believe in. And more importantly, I think what I realized as I got older was that people will replace religion with politics or whatever it is. Something they'll find something in their life that becomes a religion like thing. So that
Yeah.
softened me up a bit. Yeah.
For one of my friends, it's Star Trek, and I insulted this newest incarnation of Star Trek, and he has not spoken to me since. So
Wow. Okay.
Oh wow.
yeah,
I was gonna say that's probably not a bad thing because it's probably not, you know, he's not gonna start a war, but
You're right.
but
funnier things have happened though. I don't know.
It's crazy.
To kind of go back just a little bit as far as your live show going experiences for both Gula and Pushnik, what was the first non-metal and non-hardcore concert that you saw, and then what was that segue into hardcore and punk rock? What do you guys remember seeing? I'm assuming it would have been in the Philadelphia scene.
Yeah. Non-metal hardcore?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'll be honest, like my first show, dude, was it was 1988 at JFK Stadium. It was the Monsters of Rock show, and I was specifically there to see Metallica. That was my first show ever. You know, I was about 14 years old.
Holy shit.
I didn't really see any other outside of
wait,
metal.
hold on. You never went to a county fair?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you know, they're covering, you know,
Skinner.
what have you at the time, whatever's
Yeah.
on the radio. But no, I mean, that was legit my first show. I remember it like yesterday. You know, I was just 14 and I got a ride down to JFK to see that Monsters of Rock show. It was Van Halen headline with Hagar.
Cool.
And I was specifically there to see Metallica. It was before Injustice for All came out. And I remember them playing Harvester of Sorrow. And I was like, holy shit, like this is the new stuff. Like this is what's coming. I was so fucking pumped. That was my first show ever.
Amazing.
It's so crazy because I was so young. And when I think back, man, I was like, you know, that's gotta be crazy. My parents let me go down to Philly because where I grew up was about an hour or so away from Philly. And they're like, yeah, you can go. And I was like, all right, this is the best day of my life. Right. And definitely an experience to this day.
So 88, that would have been on what? Not Ride the Lightning, but Injustice for All? Or?
It was right before Injustice came out. It was right before that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Pretty amazing.
What a fucking hell of a show though, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It was intense, man. It was awesome.
And Pushnik, your first non-metal and non-hardcore show.
Non-metal is a banger. Kenny Rogers, 1984.
Oh,
I probably had a members only jacket on.
nice.
Pretty sick. I still listen to Kenny, so it's all good. My first show was a great first like punk hardcore show. It was Verbal Assault. Verbal Assault from Rhode Island, one of my favorite like bands from that era. That would have been about 87, 88. Trial record. I think it was 88 actually. Sorry, I'm gonna correct that. I think it might have been 89. I might have been a little later. I had tried to go to shows in 88. There was a bunch of shows in 88 that I really wanted to go to, and we lived in a small town. It was near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Hershey, Pennsylvania. I was like outside of that area. and I was too young to drive, and the guys that drove, it was at the time we were like a lot of skaters, and we would all pile into cars, but you would fit as many people as you could in a car to go to the show, and I was always the youngest, or like just too, like I was just out. I wasn't the dude who was going to go, because they were all like older kids, so I was just begging to get, and so I missed a few rides, but finally made it to Verbal Assault, and it was like game changing for me. And one of the bands that opened up was a band called Miser, which was one of the members were precursors to Conviction. So it all kind of tied together, actually.
When you guys started going to shows in that scene, did you know each other, or did you intersect when you started
Oh,
Turmoil?
No, it was
yeah.
prior. So when we started going to shows, I actually met Jim Winters, who played guitar he played for Turmoil for a little while as well, but he played in Conviction. And I met him actually at the Unisound in Reading, Pennsylvania. I can't remember the show. And, we just kicked it off, just start talking a lot. He actually really helped the early years of Turmoil before Pushnik was in the band, and like set us up with a lot of shows and things like that, and really helped me network and get us on shows outside of the Pennsylvania and stuff like that. And then of course, went to see Conviction and was completely blown away by those guys. And then before you knew it, we were trying to play shows with those guys as much as possible. And so, I think we played around probably Lehigh Valley, like Allentown area a few times. And probably up by Lancaster, where Pushnik grew up as well, a few times prior to, Pushnik getting in the band then, Turmoil.
And we got a little clip from Turmoil here. Let's go ahead and play that real quick. So what was the genesis of the band? How did you guys come together? And was it always as many Johns that are in the current incarnation of the band?
Yeah, it was something, like I said earlier, like Hodges, myself, and Hydro all grew up together. We all went to high school together. And so, we were always playing, and eventually Hodges and I were like, okay, we're doing that forward step thing, and we went to change gears a little bit. Eventually, it evolved into early Turmoil stuff, which was really, honestly really straightforward, hardcore stuff, bit generic, kept progressing over the years, getting to a better spot, and we got to a point where like we knew where we wanted to go, but we just didn't have all the right pieces, right? Like we always had a revolving bass player coming in and out. Drummer wise was always like, when you grow up in a small town in an area, you're kind of limited to musicians, that can play, but then the people that are into the same thing that you are into, right? So eventually later on, getting out, meeting Jim Winters and Pushnik and all these other bands and things like that, and networking out more, it evolved into something more. And, I believe it was probably 95, maybe, Pushnik, when you joined the band, because the band started in 92. And then I think Pushnik came on board in 95. And, we told him, hey, this is where we really want to go with this band. We feel like you could help us get there. Right. And he agreed to, try it out and see how it went. And it went well. And, here we are today. And I'll let him fill in some of those gaps. But, we probably we wouldn't be where we are without the unit that we have right now. I mean, we were always, like I said, like trying to get there, man. And it's like we just didn't have the right pieces that in those early years, you know. And it was so exciting to once Pushnik came on and just to get to that next level, like level up, right? And it was just like, oh, this is it. This is where we want to be, you know. And I'll let Pushnik chime into some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's interesting, I think about this sometimes is like looking back at those periods of time, especially going back to like Forward Step and go back to Conviction just for a second, is like there were so few people in the scene period at that time that it's crazy to think that anything would come out of those scenes that would last. And I'm not just crediting us. I mean, there's many other bands that came from small towns that did something, much bigger than we did. But it is wild to think about how, an average show at the time would have been like 75 to 100 people probably on average. And then like a bigger show with like Judge. I saw Judge play to like 250, 300 people, and then it wasn't really until, you start to see more growth in the sort of mid 90s with Earth Crisis, and then, Converge and bands like that. And then by the early 2000s, you're getting shows that are pretty big. But it's just wild to go back and think about how small of a pool of people we were pulling from to pull these bands together. Which is why, like, I was playing drum. I was like trying to learn to play drums to be in a band. Cause I was like, had to be straight edge, like had to be from the same area, had to know how to play drums. there was like 3 people, in a wide radius. So, but yeah, I was in college. I went to University of the Arts. I did shows at University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and Hydro was at school. I can't remember what it was called. It was a pharmaceutical school in West Philly. I can't think of what it's called right now, but he hit me up and he's like, "Hey, we just came back from a tour with Madball in Europe." And I had been doing this band called Vigil for a very short period of time. And Jim was in that band as well. And it's kind of like wasn't really taking off. It wasn't doing much. We weren't really making a ton of progress. And Hydra was like, "Look, we got a tour coming up with Snapcase, and we want to change the direction of the band." Like Gula was saying, we like Dead Guy, we like Groundwork, we like, Channel or Cable or whoever, like just like all these like smaller, noisier, crazier bands. Integrity, like, so there's a little bit of that metallic thing, but then there was also the more chaotic, noisy vibes. And Hodges had a lot of like interest in things that were just outside of the hardcore scene, that were a little more indie sort of noise based stuff. I remember him, I think he was listening to, he might correct me on this one, I think he was listening to Ikatawi at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, there became an opportunity there to do some things that the band hadn't done. And I think for some people who were really big fans of like early Turmoil, when I joined, they probably were like, "This guy fucked this band up," because we kind of got away from like any kind of groove for a little while. We went hard at like trying to be chaotic and noisy. And then eventually we kind of found that, I think we sort of came back to finding that groove again with the process of, and that's kind of where a lot of people like think of the band. That's like the point where a lot of people really think of us.
Yeah. I would say up until 95 when you join, and that Madball tours in 94, like I said, it was very straightforward hardcore. It had its place. I mean, we were obviously on tour with Madball. We had amazing opportunities playing lots of shows. I mean, early days, dude, we were playing every freaking VFW hall, every fire hall, across Pennsylvania. And we had this following, man. And like Pushnik said, it wasn't, you had 7,500 kids at some of those shows, but we were playing everywhere from, the New York PA border up by Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, to Lancaster, to Harrisburg, to Philly, and we were just all over. And then eventually what happened is just like more of those people from all over were driving to see us play, which was, we were like grateful for that, obviously. And, we had a following for that time and that style that we were playing. But yeah, in our gut, like we were just like, okay, we need to get to this next level, and, make no mistake about it. We all, Hodges, Hydro, myself, are all metal, thrash metal dudes. We grew up listening to all that stuff, and we wanted parts of that in there as well, right? So there was just all these influences that we wanted to be a part of this band, but we just couldn't really do it at that time.
Sure. Yeah. And you know what? The process of is really the perfect balance between those two genres. I mean, I don't even know that you'd really want to consider it genres, but those two uh, variations of the genre where it's like you've got that chaotic and kind of, real kind of spasticness of those bands that you had mentioned, like Dead Guy and Cable and stuff, but you still have those roots of the earlier hardcore, your more traditional sound. Like that, it is perfectly encapsulated in that record, and I think that's why so many people appreciate it and just love it.
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's a great balance. It really is.
As far as the Philadelphia scene is concerned, you said that there weren't a lot of people to pull from there as far as the specificity of like having a straight edge member and having a drummer. Like, holy shit, that's the hardest member to find. If anybody who plays in bands knows. What do you think about that scene kind of made it unique? And I've heard so many people, like, I've been up to Philadelphia before, but I've never actually seen any shows up there. What is it about the church, the First Unitarian Church, that makes it such an awesome place to play at?
Yeah, well, let me just backtrack a little bit. So my early days were in more central Pennsylvania, so I had been to Philly in high school and I'd gone to some shows, but I didn't consider myself like sort of a member of Philadelphia until I moved in 92. So I moved in 92 and then I've been there ever since. And I quickly got involved in the hardcore scene once I moved. I was already had been in Conviction. I started doing shows in Philly as soon as I got to Philly first year. Um, and then I got to know people like Sean Agnew and like Robbie Red Cheeks, who were people who were doing shows. I mean, really, Robbie was doing shows early along with myself. And then later in the later 90s, Sean, who did R5 Productions, which was I bring them up in the sense that like they were sort of core members of making the church what it is known for. They sort of started that. I want to give Robbie his due. He really like was just really good at promoting shows at the time. And I don't know if he found the church, but he was one of the people that like put it on the map. Um, and it just sort of made sense. Like it's all the things. Like it's like the location in the city. It's not like in a really difficult spot to go find parking. You can, there's, it sounds corny, but like if it had been in like a more remote location, I don't think it would hold the weight that it does. It's like in the city, and it's not a corporate venue. We've seen so many places like the Trocadero and I don't know, just name any of the things that are around now, but they're sort of corporate owned, and the church has always maintained this DIY thing, punk rock flea market, like indie shows that don't have anything to do with hardcore and punk, but like are still functioning on that like do it yourself level. And so that really was encapsulated in the 90s, and I think that's what really made it what it is. And as far as I can tell, like it's really maintained that the entire time, and that's been the beautiful thing about it.
That's excellent. Yeah, I've heard so many people say good things about that venue. One of my buddies saw 108 up there, and he's like, "Dude, you got to check it out." He's like, "If there's ever a show and you're ever in the area, he's like, go by there and check it out because it's unreal, you know."
Yeah, it's just become like an institution in Philadelphia, at least. I'm glad it's still around, and I'm glad it hasn't been, sort of like taken over by real estate or taken over by any corporate music, um, you know,
Yeah,
I don't know, bad actors.
absolutely, absolutely. And with Turmoil, you guys were on Century Media, which I mean was an incredible label, was putting out so many amazing things at the time. How did you guys kind of land that deal, and what was, I guess you could say, kind of, you guys did Process of, and then you ran for a few more years after that. And I seem to recall, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that 2001 Hellfest was the last show for a while. What was the experience with the label like, and then what kind of led to the winding down of the band at the time?
Yeah, I can, the early days, like I'd say 93 or whatever like that, we just started recording, and it was this place out actually by where Pushnik lives, and it was called Trauma Studios, and that was um, a place that our became a friend, Joe Dobb, who we met through Jim Winters, again networking through Jim.
Yeah.
Um, uh, he recorded the demo and he really liked it, and he had some friends at like Roadrunner and different labels, and he said, do you mind if I start passing this around? I really like it. I think it's that good, and do you care? And we were like, well, of course not. Go for it. And then he started getting some feedback from Roadrunner, Century, I think a couple other labels as well. And it was all positive. It was really good. And what ended up happening was ultimately we went with Century Media, and we were young. We had no idea. This was a dream, right? Like we wanted to have our music put out and tour and play. Like that was the goal, right? But at the end of the day, like we didn't really think about like labels and what that really meant to a band like us, right? And so you get the contract, and I think we had one of our our dad's friends or something was a lawyer, looked at the contract, and he's like, oh, it looks good to me. And so anyway, we signed with Century, and throughout the years, it was up and down with Century. Robert, who owns Century Media from Dortmund, Germany, he's an amazing person. He's a great human being. Always had great intentions. I'll say, like, there's definitely been people in there that we didn't see eye to eye with the vision of the band and stuff like that as the years went on, and it got a little heated from time to time. But I it was kind of funny, I'll be honest with you, like later on, after at the end of Turmoil, and then later on, all these bands ended up signing to Century Media, like Shadows Fall and all these other bands. And it was kind of interesting to me to see that happen after the experience. But again, there was probably different people at that time in, positions at Century Media, right? But I mean, we ended up playing that Hellfest, what you were saying, that last Hellfest. And I think we started in 92, and there's different times throughout the band, even now, like where you question things or you're going through different phases of your life, right? Like, and it just came to a point, it was super stressful. It wasn't as fun as it used to be. And Hodges and I were just like, maybe it's time, right? And Pushnik had left the band for reasons, prior to that show and that tour, and it just became very stressful. And the whole reason I play in the band now and before was to have fun, right? And play the music you enjoy and meet people and hang out with friends. And that's my main, goal with this band, is to this day, is just have fun with it, right? And it just really, it wasn't happening, and so we just decided, let's call it here, let's take a break or whatever. And that Hellfest was the last show.
Yeah, and it's interesting because our mutual friends in Earth Crisis, they talked about whenever they did their initial run, and then they kind of took a break for a while, and now they play on their own terms to where it isn't so
Yeah.
stressful, and they're not in constant anxiety because they're constantly touring, and they're like, well, what am I going to do? Maybe paying bills or something like that, where
Yeah.
uh, now their experience is such that they they can kind of just play when they want to, and they can accept shows and tours based on what's going to be the most practical and ultimately profitable for them. And would you say that that has been kind of advantageous for you guys to kind of do something similar?
Yeah, I would say similar. I think right now we're really truly. I'm at least this time around. I'm enjoying it a lot more. There was so much. It's also the point in your life, right? Like I was
Yeah.
coming out of college. I just spent all this money on college, and now I'm not going into the field that I went to school for, and I'm in a band, and we all have our different roles. And one of, at least for me personally, I'll just speak on that one thing, is like one of my roles was kind of like I took on the role of like I'm going to handle merch, and I'm going to handle these different responsibilities that also have an additional stress to and so it wasn't that much fun at the time. And I'm sure even now there's going to be times where I'm stressed out about something, but like now it just feels like I can just play a show and enjoy it, and see friends, enjoy it for what it is, and not, I don't have, I'm not in the background going like, is my girlfriend going to break up with me because I'm on tour again, or
Yeah.
are my parents going to disown me and I've got to find out who's going to get my mail while I'm on tour and shit. So like now it's just a whole different thing, we can like, I think one thing we've enjoyed is like coming back together, playing music that we still love to play, and having the clarity of like not giving a fuck about what the rest of the world thinks as much. And we are feel like, at least that's how I feel right now. Like we're not worried about what other people think. We're now in the process of, no pun intended, writing stuff that we genuinely just enjoy, and we think it we I think that's playing a nice role in like how it's going. So
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing. The process of almost came out on, I don't know if almost, but like there was a not small chance that it was going to come out on Victory, because I remember living in Philly on 13th Street and then having these conversations with like Tony Brummel from Victory, and him saying, I remember being on a payphone, and him saying like, all my other bands on my label say I should sign you guys, but I don't know, I don't really feel it. And I was like, if you don't want to sign us, don't sign us. Like,
Right.
if you're not into it, bro, it's not gonna work. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I appreciated his honesty at the time. He wasn't really, and I think that, to be fair to him, the last recording that we had done before that was from Bleeding Hands, which sounded like garbage. So in my view, so like it really didn't represent us, and luckily the process of did represent what we were trying to do. But that it so we were in the middle of all that Century Media stuff. We were kind of like shopping for other things, because we had this like not turbulent,
Yeah.
that's not, but like there were hills and valleys to that relationship. So
Sure. The vinyl was on Trustkill Ferret?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Trustkill.
correct.
Okay.
Trustkill,
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was
Josh has been with us the whole time, so which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Josh is
super
awesome.
super supportive. He reissued it again recently, with a little bit different packaging to it. But yeah, Josh has been so supportive, and very thankful to have him be behind the band.
Yeah. One of my favorite labels from the 90s. Are you guys slated to play these newer incarnations of Hellfest?
Yeah, we did the California one just 2 months ago or whatever that was.
That's right.
February.
That's right.
Yeah.
February, and then we are slated to do the Jersey one as
Jersey
well.
one, yeah.
So
What was the
Yeah.
response there? I mean, I seem to, remember seeing some of the Instagram stories and people were just setting it off and whatnot. But I mean, was it like a newer crowd, or was there an older crowd, or what were kind of the demographics of the people that were at that show?
I think it's a mix. There's definitely a good mix at all of our shows so far, and by all of those shows, I mean we played four
Three.
shows.
have we
Three,
played
yeah.
4? Yeah, no, 4. You're right, with the skate shop.
Program. We
Yeah,
did
yeah.
a small show at a skate shop in Fullerton, California, at a skate shop called Program. But yeah, I think it's been a good mix, honestly. When we played the church, I was honestly amazed by all the young kids that were there and into us and buying merch and hanging out and talking with us. I was kind of blown away, honestly. They were all up front singing along. Yeah, it was pretty cool, man. And then also, a lot of the old heads showed up as well. I mean, I had a bunch of people that I went to high school with, that I grew up with, that came out, and I haven't spoken to some of those people in 15 years, maybe, and I was very humbled, like, to see those guys come out and support us after all this time, and just, be there, right? And they loved it, they enjoyed it, and it was great to see all those people and come out and support us after all this time. I mean, it meant a lot to us, and same with the other shows. I feel like, I mean, it's a diverse between young and older crowd. And it's funny. Sometimes I'll see some people that I know up front singing along that I haven't seen in 15 years, and I smile, and it makes me super stoked, But it's also cool to see some of the younger kids up front too singing along. It's awesome.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I have yet to see you guys live, and we were kind of talking about this backstage a little bit. I think that I was actually trying to book Turmoil, or it was the Kiss of Death. I can't remember, and we'll get into Kiss of Death, which was Gula's later band. But I ended up communicating with Gula online, and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "It's Jon," and he goes, "How do you spell it?" And I was like, "It's Jon." And he was like, "Wait, do you play guitar or bass? Like, we could use you if we ever need like a fill-in member or like a replacement." And I was like, that would be insane. Greg Thomas and I had this conversation because we were singing the praises of Turmoil, and he was like, "Dude, imagine if that were the case. Like, you guys could be playing shows. We'd be like, and we've got Jon on vocals, and we've got Jon on guitar, and Jon on drums."
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, as it stands right now, we go by all last names because the band is Jon, Jon, and Jeff at the moment.
It's crazy. It's when I saw that initially too, I was like, "Holy shit, that's got to be confusing as shit."
Yeah.
Has that ever caused confusion with anybody outside of the band? Like, somebody was trying to get in touch with a particular person, they're like, "Yeah, go talk to Jon," or something like that, and then they talk to the wrong Jon, or anything wild like that?
I mean, I've had some people, nothing crazy, but I've had some people, "Yeah, I was talking to you at the show," and I was like, that wasn't me, but nothing like crazy or anything like that. Just some random miscommunication. That's all.
What is the craziest tour or even just show going experience you may have had in Turmoil or any of your bands?
Oh, what are you thinking, Gula?
I mean, dude, I'll tell you, one of my favorite. I mean,
actually, your Hellfest.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. That Hellfest in Syracuse. But tour wise, as a full tour, like I'm very thankful for all the tours, and we always had a great time. That Snapcase tour in Europe was, I mean, every day was fun.
We had a lot of fucking fun on that tour.
I mean, that tour was just day in and day out. Like, you never knew what was going to happen. Like, Tim was just a clown, he would always make you laugh and do silly shit on tour. But
we came up with a thing on that tour called Cheer Up the Bus, which was, our bus started to smell, we're a month, or maybe not a month. We were maybe like a couple weeks into it. And it was just getting kind of depressing a little bit. I mean, we were having fun as a band, but being on the bus itself kind of sucked after a minute. And we were in Sweden, and we decided we're going to cheer up the bus. And so we went into the town that we were in. I won't name the town. And we stole as many things as we could find off of people's porches and off of their houses to fill our. So we found like disco balls. We found like a full-size cutout of what's his name? Who was that? Who not Fred Astaire? I almost said Fred Astaire. Bing Crosby, right? No.
Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart. It was Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
And we put flowers. Our bus had so many flowers on it. It was like the bunks were lined with flowers.
Oh my God.
So it actually looked really amazing for like a day or two, until everything died and then it smelled. But and then we had this thing where like the tour manager we had stolen a number of welcome mats from houses. And so when we got off the bus, our tour manager would line all the flowers out in a row and then put the floor mats out, and then we would get off the bus. It was just stupid shit. We flipped over a car in Germany.
Yeah.
We flipped a car upside down in Germany. We did a lot of shit. We probably
Holy
shouldn't.
shit.
Yeah, we definitely did a lot of shit. I mean, and we were younger too. And I think about that, dude.
We could have
Somebody
gotten
brought
harder.
that car thing up, and I was like, yeah, that kind of sucks, man. Just think about that person coming out the
Oh yeah,
next
but it was
morning.
funny as hell when you're 22.
It
It was
was
amazing.
great at the time, in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
But
Do you feel like any sort of karmic retribution came back to you when you guys
No,
were
that
on
was
the road?
we were getting it back at the Brits for that one. That was because when we were in England, we got robbed and they stole our shit, and then we saw a British car in Germany. We decided to flip it upside down.
that's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh
Man.
god.
So
Well,
maybe there is karmic retribution that we don't know about yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
there's so many things though. I mean, I remember on our first US tour with Damnation AD, we had a couple of shows in Canada and we didn't have the right paperwork and we were trying to get across the border and they basically detained us.
We all got arrested.
Yeah, we didn't have the right papers and we had to stay, we got detained overnight and then they finally let us go. But to this day, we have files on us. So anytime we try to go into Canada, no matter what, like they will pull us aside and ask us why. So that was an interesting. Well, what ended up happening though, it actually turned out really cool. So we ended up staying with the Snapcase guys in Buffalo. We ended up going to Buffalo. We picked up a show at a record store. And it was just like a pop-up show, and it was insane. It was one of the best shows,
on that tour.
We played it, and yeah, it was great. So it worked out, and it was fine. But it was cool just hanging out with those Snapcase guys again in Buffalo, and just being crazy in Buffalo for a few days. But yeah, there's a lot of it's a lot of crazy shit that you do when you're young and you're just on tour, and you're like, just have fun.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That's interesting too, because there used to be a point in time where you could cross into Canada with like just your driver's license.
Well, you could, but what happened was we lied. He left that part out.
Oh.
We lied to the border, and then they found that we were saying that we were going to go from one. We were just telling them that we were cutting across the top of the lake instead of driving down below, and they went through our shit and found like the itinerary for the shows we were playing in Canada. And they wanted working papers for that.
And you were probably selling merch.
We had merch, and they found the merch, and then to your point about karmic, we did get robbed in Toronto for like we were playing the show. Somebody broke into our van and stole all of our merchandise for a whole tour. So somewhere out there's cream cheese sweatshirts on a homeless dude that we didn't sell.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
They stole my bag, and to this day, I had my Soylent Green shirt in there. It was one of my favorite shirts, and they stole that. I wasn't happy about that.
Fucking that's I wouldn't be either. They had some amazing artwork, and I'm sure the shirt was probably amazing too. Wow.
Yeah.
So what would be your favorite places to play nationally and internationally? I'm assuming probably places you didn't wreak havoc in, or.
I would say, well, it's hard to say what would be now for sure without going back and doing it. But I would say for me, my last show with the band was one of my favorite shows, which was in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was a club that no longer exists, but it was like down. My friend Johan from Nine would be able to tell me the name of the place. I can't remember it, but it had these like concrete arches. The whole thing looked like some kind of like you were underneath a monastery kind of vibe. And we didn't know what to expect. The bands were kind of crusty. There was no we weren't on a bill of like similar hardcore bands. It was this very mixed bill, which I enjoyed, but we just didn't know how we were going to be received. And it ended up being like such a fun show. The crowd was so into it. It was a blast. I would say one other one, Gula, before is like that His Hero Is Gone show in Memphis that we played where I almost got a fight. Me and Gary almost got a fight on stage. Our bass player and I almost threw down on the stage.
What happened?
Yeah.
He kept knocking over my cymbals, and I threw a cymbal that hit him in the back of the head, and then I threw a stick at him. Sorry, not a cymbal. And I hit him, And then he came at me, and then and the crowd was like cheering that we were gonna fight, and then we ended up playing the rest of the show, and we got to see His Hero Is Gone, which is one of our favorite bands as well. So it was just like an awesome. It had a dark moment in it, but it was a fun experience overall. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you, Gula?
Dude, I'll say like Philly, dude, hands down is one of the best places to see a show, play a show in the United States, man. Like as a kid, getting rides down to the Troc and things like that, and seeing all the bands play there, and just then eventually like living down there for a little bit and being a part of the scene and everything. I mean, it's just an amazing place. And I moved out west, was it 2010? And ever since then, man, all the places I've lived, like, it does not have a music scene like Philly. Philly just crushes when it comes to music. Like, any band comes through there, it's going to be, packed. People are going to be into it. I don't know. I just think that scene and seeing music in Philly is something special. And then I'll say, Europe, Europe was always interesting. You play a bunch of shows in Germany, you play all over, you could play 3 weeks in Germany if you wanted to, right? So Germany always is solid, but Sweden was always like really good for us. I felt like we always did really well in Sweden, always had a great time there. One of my favorite shows, actually, we got to play Croatia once. And that was super impressive. That was really cool. Like, I think like the Bosnian War was kind of happening.
I think it was finishing up.
Yeah, it was right around then. And we didn't know, what to expect. Many bands weren't there at the time. Like, they were just starting to go over there. And so we just didn't really know. And when we got there, man, it was just like, it was intense. Like, everybody was super excited we were there. Everybody went off. It was just a really cool experience to get over there and be in front of those people. And that was honestly one of my favorite shows to date. Like, that show was great.
Hell yeah. I've heard so many awesome things about Eastern Europe, because there was a period of time where they weren't allowed to have American bands, and then they come in there, and the guy, God, this would have probably been an era where the internet wasn't even like really a thing, so it would have been kind of a word of mouth thing, and they get to see one of their favorite bands from America, and they're just like fucking mind blown, like you said.
Yeah, the one part I remember about that show, Gula, is like when we left, the Border Patrol threatened our lives. Do you remember that?
Jesus.
I did. Yeah,
the guy, we were asleep, but the tour manager said that when we were leaving, he said, "If you come back, we're going to kill you." And it was like two 18-year-olds with AR-15s at the time, or whatever it was. Maybe they weren't AR-15s, but they had automatic weapons.
Yeah,
probably AKs if it was yours.
Yeah, probably AKs. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Fucking insane. Before we do our rapid fire questions, we got a comment here. It's Mike Olander from Endeavor, Burnt by the Sun. He says,
what's up?
Tell them I said what's up. Hold on. Tell them I said what's up. We Disembodied just played a couple shows in Cali with them. So good to see them, still killing it. I'm coming out to see them in Hang when they play here in Raleigh in May.
Sick. He's awesome.
Yeah, Mike. It was great catching up with Mike at Hellfest West. We hung out for quite a bit backstage there and talked and just reminisced a bit. And then we played the skate shop the next day with Disembodied as well. And it was just a great weekend, man. Like, that program, skate shop, there might have been, I don't know, 75 people in that place. It's not very big, but it was just it was us, Disembodied, and Ursula, and just playing that show, I was getting flashbacks from like my younger days, and it just was such a great moment. And when you looked around the room, everybody was just smiling and happy and having a good time. And I'm like, yes, this is why we do this. This is so much fun, and my family got to come along, my wife and my daughter. And like, it was one of my first times my daughter's ever seen us play live, and she was super excited. So it was just like an all around great weekend. It just really was.
Dude, I honestly had wish I had been at that show. It just seemed like it was an amazing lineup, and I'd actually been out west to go catch Earth Crisis and Judge and Integrity before that. So I was like,
Nice.
I can't afford a second trip. But,
Yeah,
sure.
Maybe the New Jersey one,
yeah,
or maybe
that's
or
good.
maybe this Raleigh show that Mike's talking about. I still gotta hang out and grab some lunch with Mike. So maybe we'll make that happen. But all right, so we got some rapid fire questions here. Stand by. Here we go. All right. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Oh, uh-oh. Got a little bit of a split here. That'd be shitty on tour. Like no, I guess you could split it half and half if you guys. Let's see here. Baseball or football? If you guys are sports fans, I obviously Gula there. Baseball.
I'm gonna go with football though. Believe it or not, yeah.
Oh,
Football.
I know I got the Phillies hat on.
Go Birds.
Yeah, I'll say football though.
okay. All right. What? Okay, from a meditation standpoint, because I follow spirituality, like I like baseball because I feel like it is a meditation. Like I feel like you're kind of like getting into the minds of the players, and you're really kind of like strategizing, and you're just like kind of seeing everything for what it is. Do you like football more because it's more like fast paced and it's more like rapid, aggressive? Yeah.
I think so, but I do love going to baseball games live. Like I'm not really watching the games so much on TV once in a while, but yeah, going in person to see baseball is great. I love it. I was just actually at spring training for Dodgers over in Arizona like a couple weeks ago, and it was just nice to just chill. Like I'm not a Dodgers fan. I don't like the Dodgers. I just had the opportunity to go. And but it was just great, man. It was just great being in the ballpark and just relaxing. So, but I would say I would go with football though, definitely over baseball.
Okay.
All
right.
I would say football just because I think it's more of a chess match, and I would have years ago I might have said baseball. I 08 Phillies World Series. I was there game 3. Game 5 when they won. I was at the game where they won the World Series.
Oh shit.
I love baseball, but it does become a little bit of an individual player can make or break the game in a lot of ways, the pitcher or like a hitter who's like locked in. Whereas like football requires so many components to work out for the offense or the defense to work. So I like that chess match.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I could see that. There's a lot of moving parts. Yeah, definitely. Star Trek or Star Wars? Don't know if you guys are fans, but
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Nobody has answered Star Trek yet. Okay. I kind of wish that Matt Fox from Shai Hulud would come on this show. I think he would run towards Star Trek. Beach or mountains?
That's a tough one. I mean, I live in Colorado, so I have the mountains here all the time. So I'm gonna go with beach because I have the mountains here all the time.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with beach. There's a lot of ladies without a lot of clothing, and it's not politically correct, but I don't care. I like the beach.
Hey man, like that's kind of an era I miss in the that's kind of an era I miss in the 90s where it was, like Throwdown having the cheerleader booty shorts and stuff. Like, what happened to that? Like what happened? Everybody got uptight. Let's see here. Fantasy concert or show lineup? 3 artists.
You go first.
No.
Fantasy concert or show lineup. It can be any genre.
Yeah. If they're existing at present or not.
Any mix of bands.
Any genre.
I'm gonna go Minor Threat, Sade, Waylon Jennings.
That's off in every direction. Wow. What do you got, Gula?
One of my all-time, I'd say and this probably isn't nowhere near what Pushnik said, but mine's gonna be pretty straightforward. It'd be like probably Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden. Yeah, boring.
Who's your third?
I would say
Metallica, maybe.
Violence, the band, the thrash metal band Violence.
Okay. All right.
I feel like they're underrated. They started playing again. I love that band, and I got to see them once more recently, but I never got to see them back in the 80s. I love that band.
All right. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs.
Do you guys have dogs, and what kind of breeds do you prefer?
I don't have a dog.
I do. I have a French bulldog.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Somebody on here before had a French bulldog. I can't remember who it was. All right.
If you have a French bulldog, that just means you have a girlfriend or a wife.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Let's see. Here we go. A song that is personal to you from any of your projects.
Ooh.
From our projects? From
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious one for me would probably be Anchor, the Turmoil song Anchor.
Okay.
But I'm trying to write some right now that's pretty personal, so we'll see. That might change with the new record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any reason why, or
any reason why it would be my favorite?
Yeah. Do you have like a personal connection to it, at least lyrically? Or
Anchor was really written at a time when it's really written towards my mom, and it was written at a time when she was not happy with her life. She was, just like a lot of things weren't working. Her job, the relationship with my father at the time, and they kept pushing me very hard at that time to sort of follow the path that they had laid out for themselves. And I mean, it sounds a little cliche now, but this was 90, I don't know, 5 or 6 when we were writing this stuff. And but it really, still holds true. Like, I was so in love with what we were doing as a band. I loved being on tour. I loved writing music. I had this opportunity that, like, it was like a thing that they never had that laid in front of them to have that opportunity. And they kept trying to get me to quit the band. So I wrote the song as a response to like kind of like a little bit of an ode to my love for hardcore and the scene and music, while sort of being a little critical of like their own very compartmentalized suburban life decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you got,
I think for me it's from Bleeding Hands. That song was written about my father. It's about working class. He was worked at Bethlehem Steel his whole life and put 35 years into that, right out of high school. And it's just a really, I don't know, I mean, the song just really encapsulates my early childhood and life, and and it's a somewhat of a tribute to him and all of his time put in supporting the family.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Cool. I think we talked about this, but my dad worked there too. Did you know that? Both of our dads worked at Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Different plants.
Yeah.
Same company.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, they were a juggernaut back in the day, man. Everybody worked there, and then
blue collar Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I hope those questions weren't too goofy. I try to keep them pretty lighthearted. One of the questions I wanted to ask was drown or burn to death?
Oh, shit, dude.
Which is pretty heavy.
Burn.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Which one? What?
I picked burn to death because I think what happens is you probably lose your senses pretty quickly. I would imagine you can't feel much after a short period of time. Drowning seems like, I don't know, that one.
Yeah. I'm gonna probably go with burning as well.
See, I was thinking drown because with drowning, it seems like you would just lose consciousness. Yeah, and like having my skin like being
Melt.
excruciating pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the nerve endings
But I
going.
don't
Yeah,
know
I
if you
don't know
would
if I
feel
could
it
do it.
till like, I think the burn thing is you feel it much later. I don't know if like in the moment with your, I don't know. That's just
Well,
my.
and you would probably lose consciousness too because of the smoke inhalation.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's why I try to say cats and dogs, pineapple on pizza,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah.
Oh, take it down a notch. But okay, my question that I typically ask people on the show is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Um, I think for me, be confident. I think there's times where I was probably lacking some confidence here or there. Um, don't second guess yourself as much. Um, I think those would be my two things probably if I look back.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it would probably be trying to keep the perspective that the relationships that you have at a young age are, some of those relationships are going to last a lifetime, and some of those relationships just serve the purpose of the, like that there are certain things that feel really heavy and dramatic in that moment, but they're going to pass. And I know that this probably gets said a lot, but I think I was a pretty emotional person, so I would take things too hard. I would be like wildly offended by things, and then wildly in love with somebody that I wasn't really in love with. So I think on that emotional pendulum, like I would just, it's kind of what Gula said, just like calm down. Things are going to change. You're going to find that medium at some point. So yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And before I forget too, Gula, I wanted to mention the Kiss of Death. We didn't really get to talk about that, which was their release was put out by Tribunal Records, which was a North Carolina label out of Greensboro, North Carolina. Matt,
Yep.
and what did Buck Rogers make you do?
That was just something that band honestly was just all fun. There was no real like messaging. It was conspiracy theory themed lyrics, and again, not a lot of like, not too much personal stuff, but more like conspiracy theory things. And yeah, Buck Rogers made me do it. Was just one of those things that came up. But the band was a lot of fun, man, and I had a great time. And to this day, I still love those riffs too. Just a little bit different direction, of course, than Turmoil is more sludgy, a little bit of rock and roll in there as well. Vocals are still my vocals, but just a very heavy out EP that we're very fortunate to have Matt from Tribunal put out. We
You
got to
guys
play
toured a
around.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we mostly played the Allentown, Lehigh Valley area and Philly, like um, here and there. Honestly, we got to play with High on Fire quite a bit with that band, and that was very awesome to play with those guys that much. But we did make it down to North Carolina. We played maybe once or twice. We played Tennessee, and we made it down to New Orleans to play once too. But just a fun project with Hydro. We were living together at the time, and basically, actually how that band came to be is we were trying to think of something to do. We were trying to play, but we just couldn't get it together. And then we were out seeing, like, I think the Get Up Kids, and James who was playing drums in Coalesce. He also played in the Get Up Kids for a little bit. He told us, hey, Coalesce is going to come back around. We're going to play Philly. If you're doing anything, we'd love to have you guys play. And in that moment, we started the Kiss of Death. Like, that's how that, like, quickly that turned on. And like,
Wow.
how many months later, like 6 months later, we played the TLA with Coalesce, the Kiss of Death. So yeah, it was super fun project. And I know Hydro still wants to try to do some stuff with that band. I don't know. We'll see. Like, just even with Turmoil, I mean, like, we're trying to do as much as we can, right? And we're trying to play as many shows as we can. And what that looks like, I don't know. Could be 6 shows this year, could be 8, and we're, like we said earlier, Pushnik said it too, we're having fun, and we all basically have, our day-to-day lives, and families and careers and whatever. So we're trying to fit it in where we can, and we're going to try to get out there and play as many shows as we can. And, we'll see where it all goes. But, yeah, I would love to do Kiss of Death at some point, but again, who knows, man? I don't know. We're taking everything day by day with Turmoil. So
Sure. Arts and media. What are you guys watching? What are you listening to? What are you reading?
Oh. You want me to go first?
yeah, you probably have more interesting things than myself. I'm pretty
No,
good.
I don't know, man. No, I'm actually, man. I'm actually like a little bit in this. I'm in this like rut of world politics. So I've just been delved so deeply into. That would have been a better like COVID question for me, because I was a little more like dialed into like the creative side of things. Not to say that I don't feel creative at the moment, but I do feel like I've been consumed with the idea of power and how it is, you know, how we all deal with power in our lives. You know, how we fund power, and things like that. So I would say it's been eye-opening to like have people who I, would have thought were crazy say some things that were crazy conspiracy theories, and then you kind of like fast forward a few, 5, 10 years, and you're like, oh shit, this seems like maybe this is real. And not everything. There's a lot of bullshit out there, but it's just disappointing to like sort of lose your idols in the sense of like having faith in any kind of politics and stuff like that. So I don't want to get too low on it, but that's been where my head is like sort of thinking about, our, how we go about our daily life, you know, trying to feed our families and maybe enrich ourselves, but all the while, every little thing we do funds something that seems like it just rains down terror on other people in other countries, like our tax dollars doing that. So that's where I've been politically, honestly. I'm just in my head in terms of like podcasts or whatever, reading.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I remember you guys did that Commander and Thief song,
Hmm.
which came out a few years after anything Turmoil had released. I'm assuming that was in response to W.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really sucks that it feels like we're going through another version of that right now. And I there, without getting into too, like, I could go on for hours about that, but I just feel like there's a lot of cosplaying about like, our two-party system in the United States seems to like position itself like you're the bad guy, you're the bad guy, all while most of the establishment of both of those parties are
Are
still
chumming
have
it
the
up.
same interest, yeah, behind the
Yeah.
scenes. And all you have to do is go to a few restaurants in DC that I've been at, and you can see it happening, and it's disgusting. And so it's been an inspiration for me lyrically as this band got back together, kind of at the right time for, at least for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alex Dunn from Crime in Stereo was on the show, and he said that he worked at a law firm and was doing like political campaigning, and that everybody that was in that realm were lawyers, and to where they would be, the prosecution and then the defense would be at each other in the courtroom. Behind the scenes, they were, at the bar, at a
Hundred
restaurant,
percent.
just chumming it up. And, he said everybody that's in politics, I mean, shit, you look at our Congress and everything, all attorneys, attorneys,
Hmm.
attorneys. And it's like that just kind of carries over.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
shitty.
Yeah,
What do you?
it's so crazy when you think about like some of these songs, not just from Turmoil, but like other bands like that were written such a long time ago and then still holds true to where we are right now in this day and age. It's just crazy, man. Like, yeah, it's just it's
Yeah.
frustrating. But yeah, I don't honestly like for me, I've just been involved with family and work, and it's nothing exciting, honestly, in the band. I will say one thing though, man, like when we stopped the band in 2000 and got back together a little bit there in 2005 or 6 or 7, whatever that was. I after that, man, like I kind of bowed out. I didn't really wasn't really involved with the scene at all. I didn't really listen to any new material, any new music from any new hardcore bands or punk or anything like that. And I just really kind of stepped away, and I eventually just dropped off all social media. I just recently got back on social media because the band got back together. Like I just stepped away from everything and it felt good, man. It was great. Honestly, it was just a great reset. But I guess what I'm getting at is more recently, music wise, is probably I'm listening to some of the newer bands, and getting inspired, honestly. Like there's so much good music out right now. I think just the scene in general is in such a great place. There are so many bands. There's a lot of old bands that are coming back. I mean, it's a really good time to be in the scene or part of the scene. I mean, it's really something special right now. And just listen to some of these younger new bands and seeing some of the older guys like out at the shows and stuff and hearing, what they're doing now. And it's just really inspiring to me. And I think like right now, like it's just a great time for the hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call it, scene.
Yeah, when you look at bands like Turnstile and Knocked Loose that are just absolutely out there killing it, that just
Yeah.
seems to be more inspirational than anything because it seems like any band would want to kind of reach that sort of status. And then here it is, you've got Grammy winners, you've got people going on Jimmy Kimmel, and it's like, it's here, it's now. It's a really exciting and interesting time for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's definitely cool, man.
So, as far as you guys played the Hellfest West and we got the one coming up in New Jersey, can we expect any sort of new recordings from Turmoil and what sort of other future plans do you guys got?
Well, there's the details of that are a little TBD, but we are
Okay.
writing songs. We've completed, I would say, a small handful of new songs. We have a few leftovers from an earlier iteration that we've reworked that we still really like. There's some things that I wish had seen the light of day that never got to see the light of day, and we're reworking those at the moment. But we also, I might be the most excited about the stuff that we just wrote recently. Um, and we have to see how it's exactly going to pan out, but we're shooting for sometime around the end of the year, early next year, to like record. And I don't want to jump the gun on any like hard details, but that's sort of the plan at the moment.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a little it's a little tricky, like we all live in different areas now. We're not really close except for Hodges and Pushnik. We all live, different states, so just a little tricky. And I think like a lot of bands, honestly, from what I'm hearing, that's kind of the case and they figure it out. But yeah, we're trying to figure out how to write material being away from each other.
excellent. I'm looking forward to hearing it, man. Like Process of was a huge album for me, like fucking killer, and I still listen
Thank you.
to it. And yeah, absolutely. And Greg Thomas said that End, his band, was hugely inspired by Turmoil, and it is refreshing to see, like you had mentioned, people that are of all different age groups coming to your show and really kind of read either revisiting or just initially discovering you guys as a band. So I think that's great, and I absolutely wish you guys the best of success. Is there anybody you want to shout out, or any new bands that you want to drop, as far as like who you think's out there crushing it?
Man, well, I would say we played a show with Ursula at the program, and they were sick. I was really That's not a band that I see. There's a lot of bands that we play with that are really good that already get a lot of hype. But in terms of like smaller bands, I think that Holder is sick. Actually, I love that
Yeah,
record.
yeah, that last record is really good.
The EP was good.
I Promise the World is
Mhm.
their stuff. I mean, we're very fortunate, got to play a show with them.
Foreign Hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Man, like I said earlier, there's so much good
Yeah.
stuff right now, and it's like like I said, I was out of the loop, man. I'm trying to like bring all this in and like comprehend what's going on in the scene right now. There's just so much good stuff coming out, and I literally have on my phone like just all new stuff that I put in a playlist, and if I'm out, riding around or whatever, like I'll just put it on and listen to the whole new playlist. So yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, a lot of good stuff, man.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in that I was out of it for a while, and I'm kind of discovering a lot of the new stuff. I've been trying to have a lot of the newer bands on this show. Some of them are kind of inaccessible, like some of them are like off there doing their own thing and they're blowing up,
Yeah.
and they're kind of hard to access sometimes. But hopefully, I can get some new blood on here. But it's great to have the old guard on here. Like I said, thank you guys for coming on the show so much, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys in May. Like I'm now that I know about this, I didn't know there was a tour. I'll definitely be in attendance there. I think that'll be great, and it'll be a fun show. I want to thank everybody for coming to the stream. You guys have been awesome and amazing, and you can continue to support us by clicking subscribe, clicking on that bell for notifications, liking the video, commenting on the video, and sharing it. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a follow, give us a rating, and super chats. You don't even have to be live. You can just give a donation post show, or you can go over to hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use code podcast for 20% off. If you like movies and hardcore themed t-shirts, we got them over there in spades. I think you'll really like them. They're next level tri-blend t-shirts. They feel amazing. Check it out. I think that'll be awesome. Everybody, thank you guys so much for coming to the show. If you guys don't mind hanging out for just a minute or so, I know we got some time constraints, but it'd be great just to do a quick post game. Thank you guys so much, everybody. Namaste. God bless. Be good. Thanks.
Hell's Heart, life's a game. Money, power, the price of fame.